Well, hello there. I am Mark Risen Hopkins, and welcome to yet another Merge Roundtable. Today, I am joined by nobody. It's just me. Nobody else is here. Everyone's got COVID or something, and or is traveling or is out of the office or like it. So we're just gonna kind of me and Soel are gonna vamp for until we run out of steam today and talk a little bit about some news stuff.
Yeah,
and
I'm here.
That's it. I was hoping you were gonna like flip to the empty chair.
So I tried, but the that middle cam is unplugged or something.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
come plug it
Okay.
in.
Well,
It's a good
because we don't
visual.
really need it. I was waiting for the sight gag. So yeah, not a ton of crypto news, but there is a ton of tech news this week. The crypto markets have been kind of, as they say, crab walking sideways. There's not a lot of up or down movement. A lot of the markets, it's kind of paused while the Fed decides what they're going to do with rate hikes. A lot of assumption is that we may be nearing the top of the rate hikes because the next quarter, when they decide if things go up or down, a further move upward would actually put the country into a recession, which is not what they're looking for. They're looking to curb inflation. And so there we go. There's my big round table. But yeah, so anyway, we're not going to do a whole lot of finance news today, mostly because Frank is in conference calls today and cannot join us, and Mark Shutt is sick as well this week. So we'll skip past that type of the discussion unless something else comes up in the news while we're scrolling the feeds here. One of the things that I saw that, and Mark did actually send this link to me earlier in the week. Sohail was the antitrust case going on with Google. Did you see anything about that?
No.
So this is, I mean, you can smell the palpable excitement within the tech press right now because I don't know, you weren't around for it, but back in the I guess it would have been 90s when it was the DOJ versus Microsoft was the last big tech breakup case, or where breakup was even on the table, and Washington, D.C. went to war with Silicon Valley / Redmond, Washington. So that's what's on the table right now. What they're saying is that, and this is where it gets really weird, what their case is, because antitrust cases obviously are for when there is a monopoly in the market that is harming consumers, typically when it comes to price. The whole idea behind antitrust regulations is that it is the opinion of the U.S. government that competition in the market breeds better it breeds better products because competition sharpens competition, right? And so if you got to the point where you no longer have competition in a market, then that's when what Cory Doctorow describes as the enshittification process takes place, and the company starts extracting rents out of its customer base. The issue here is, or what is the interesting way to legally slice this case up, is that people don't pay for search, right? I mean, nobody pays to make a query of a search engine. So it's the position of Google that nobody is being harmed because no one is losing money. And to me, and also there is no monopoly. That's the other thing. Like there's other search engines. Anybody can change their search engine anytime they want. People just choose Google because it's the best of breed.
That's Google's position.
That's Google's position. And it's a hard one to refute too. Like you could type in Bing. Why don't you?
Yeah. I mean, there's prominent competition. I mean, people do use Bing and Yahoo. Ask Jeeves. No, not Ask Jeeves, but Bing and Yahoo.
DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, I use that one for some reason.
Yeah.
I didn't even download it. I don't know how I have it.
Right. Well, I mean, so here's how it happens: is you don't probably use a regular browser, do you? Like, what browsers do you use?
Safari and Chrome.
Safari and Chrome? Okay. Well, so like it comes default, I think, on Brave, which is a privacy-focused browser. DuckDuckGo does. And so what what the crux of the DOJ case is about is or not the crux, but like one of the main points of it is the default search engine in a browser tends to be Google because the deals that Google strikes. And then Google's response to that is, well, they wouldn't, if it was, you don't see, Bing has the opportunity to outbid us. They've got just as much money as Google. You don't see Bing being the default browser or buying them. This is because the Bing browser is, or the Bing search engine is inferior to the Google search engine. So they would make a deal with the best search engine that offers them the most amount of money for the deal, right?
I mean, yeah, I hate to say it, but it's hard to draw a comparison to like other antitrust, like, you know,
like
what are
Standard
other-
Oil. Like
yeah.
Standard Oil was like clear cut. They cornered the market on oil and were artificially inflating prices because they could.
Now, is there any evidence that Google is doing that overtly?
Well, I mean, they're a business and they're focused on money, so yeah, they're doing things that are, you know, competitive and not just innovation focused. Like, so they cut deals with browsers, right? And they cut deals with phone companies. Android was undertaking. I mean, I can speak authoritatively on this topic because I actually covered the launch of Android. I was the one that broke the story of Android back in my would have been pre-Mashable days. So, but like the idea behind Android was twofold, right? I mean, so turning back the clock, we didn't have Chromebooks, we didn't have cheap computing. Like the cheapest thing you could get was like a used $1,000 Dell that kind of worked, right? And so the big buzz at that time was this project called OLPC, One Laptop Per Child, which was a project that kind of succeeded, kind of didn't, to create a $100 laptop to bring general purpose computing to third world nations, essentially. And Android was like, well, why can't we do that for consumers around the world, not just in Africa or someplace?
What was this, a separate company?
Yeah, it was just like a nonprofit initiative.
Got you.
Right. And this was also pre-Raspberry Pi days, right? So, like, I mean, arguably, Raspberry Pi did a better job, or ARM did a better job with Raspberry Pi to execute the OLPC concept than the OLPC thing did. That's probably a whole other can of worms in terms of discussion.
I had no idea about this.
Yeah. Look up OLPC, like as a search term. You'll probably find OLPC, One Laptop Per Child. And it's a fascinating initiative, but it kicked off. The thing that was successful was it kicked off this race to the bottom in terms of cheap compute, and it created the idea or the environment for Android to flourish as an idea. And so they said, well, why can't we make the computer a pocket device, right? This was, and why can't we make it as cheap as possible? So it was the development team from Sidekick was bought, which, remember, you're that little, I don't know if you remember this, Soil, but it was like they probably still make them, Sidekicks. It was like a little mini smartphone, but you swiped it up and it had like a laptop style QWERTY style keyboard in it.
Yeah, I had a Razor, but
right,
the cool ones had
Sidekicks. Yeah. They were like definitely the cool kids that had the
dang.
But so they bought the Sidekick development team or the UX team, brought them into Google, and that became the basis for the Android team. And they developed the first smartphone that looks anything like what we all carry around now. One laptop per child. Are they still around?
I was going to say, it's active.
Huh. Good for them. But the stated goals at the time were to have low price compute in everybody's pocket, number one, but number two, it made a strategic goal of, and this was directly from my source within Google. And if you ever look up the old Mashable articles about the Google phone, that's the search term that brings up my old coverage, you'll find this. My source inside of Google was saying, look, Google is growing in market share as a search engine this at the same rate the internet is growing as an entity, right? As a set of protocols. Like the user base of the internet and Google are growing at parity. So the only way we can't take more market share of the internet and grow as a company, the only way we can grow the company is to grow the size of the internet. And so Android as an initiative was to put the internet in more people's view.
Got you.
And so it makes sense, of course, that they're not going to create an operating system and this whole hardware initiative just to like give it away to Bing, right? They're going to make Google the default search engine. I mean, why would you spend billions of dollars of R&D to give it away to somebody else?
But yeah. So dang, this is some kind of, I'm trying to draw a parallel with any other industry where this issue would arise, but
like it's truly a different thing, and it's an affectation of this surveillance capitalism model that we have. Like it's the only thing that you could maybe say that there are parallels to would be the newspaper business, right? Or old TV and radio, but they operated on such different like underlying paradigms that the comparisons break down.
like going into new markets in order to establish there, right?
Right, like maybe
Yeah.
maybe the New York Times or something. Hey, Ryan,
Hi.
how you doing?
Good. So he told me to come in.
Yeah. We're just going through the news.
Flow of concentration.
Yeah. Well,
That's what I'm good for.
right. We're just talking about the Google DOJ antitrust case. Have you read anything about it?
No.
No. Well,
And I probably just missed the entire.
yeah. That's okay. You'll catch up.
I'll catch on.
Right. So the after all the setup and the explanation, we're kind of going through like there's really not an analogy or an analogous industry to the one that Google exists in as a search engine that has ever faced anything that would rise to the level of antitrust regulation.
Yeah, I think long story short, Google's being hit by an antitrust. Is it a
Lawsuit. Right?
lawsuit?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard about this.
Right. Well, I mean, the proceedings started this week. That's why it's in the news.
And what's your take on it?
Well, I mean, it bends the definition of what antitrust is. So the DOJ has to assign new either core values to what antitrust rules are for, or they have to reinterpret what antitrust or monopoly, the word monopoly means as a legal term, to make the jurisdiction they have in this case apply to Google.
So I kind of see, first of all, I don't have a definitive opinion on anything.
Right. None of us are lawyers.
That as well. But like, if we look at history, who was the number one developer of telephone technology?
The Bells, right?
Bell.
There was a lot of comparisons.
And then what happened when they split everything up? Innovation slowed,
and then they eventually became one company again.
right? And even it came one company, and then you have all these. You got Verizon, you got this, you got that. But ultimately, they're all like, even though they're competing, hey, what are you charging? Okay, we'll charge the same.
Yeah, it was a cartel. Yeah, it became a cartel instead of a corporation.
So,
well, that's the other thing here, and this is the big. And nobody's even talking about sentencing phase because we're still in this, or not really sentencing because it's a lawsuit, but like the remedy phase. But like, do you break them up? Do you break up Google? How do you break up? Because typically, as you mentioned with the Bells, when you break up a company, it was done on regional. Same thing with Standard Oil. It was broken up regionally, right? And it makes sense. Like you can have Ma Bell and Pac Bell and Southwestern Bell and all these other little baby bells. And then you had the Lucent Technologies that broke away, so it was the hardware division and all this stuff. You can have that, and then it makes sense at some level. But like, what are you gonna have regional Googles? Like, if I Google search Texas, it's gonna be Google Texas, and I'm only gonna get Texas-based results. That doesn't make sense from the way the internet works.
So here's the thing with Google. Everybody likes Google because the simplicity of Google is a search bar. And I get that they've taken over the world since then, but essentially it was a search bar. I don't use Bing. I don't use Internet Explorer. I don't use all these other things. Alta Vista died. Did I just age myself when I said Alta Vista?
Right.
Sohail, are you laughing? Is that what I hear?
Yeah.
But
I remember.
If something is good, why are we hampering them? Especially when there's so much hypocrisy.
Yeah.
You know, because like, hey, you know, all these military industrial complex, they're all the same guy. They're all the same kind of cartel, you know. So why are we picking and choosing?
Yeah. Well, because
Well, that's a good point.
yeah.
Just make everything public. Is that what you're saying, Ryan?
I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying say at Harper Belmont Media, we became the #1 go-to media producers of everything. And we beat out a Netflix and a HBO and a Max and all the things. And then they're like, and we worked our asses off to get to that point. And then the government's like, oh, you earned it. No, you're a criminal. We need to split you up. That's frightening.
Right.
Yeah, and that's not legal. Like the lawsuit wouldn't get anywhere. But when you're talking about trusts, like if we did that through, like, trust practices, then they could come after us. So is Google doing that?
And again, I think what the government shows us, and again, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not studied enough up on any of this to know anything. But if somebody in the government wants you, they're going to get you.
Right, but that's not necessarily the case in antitrust. Like Microsoft defeated their antitrust. They lost the case, but they didn't lose the war, right? So they had to separate the battle with Microsoft versus the DOJ was over the integration of Internet Explorer into the operating system,
Right.
which is ironic because every operating system other than Windows has the browser integrated into the operating system. Try running Android without Chrome or Apple without Safari.
Yeah.
Right. So there is no, and you can't uninstall it. You can like switch browsers, but you can't uninstall it. You can't do, and try running your.
So do you think that, sorry, I didn't mean to break.
Well, the point being here is that that would be the fruitful path that the DOJ could go down. See, this is what bothers me about this case. It's not like I've never said this before. The DOJ is really dumb, like hands down. They never picked the right. Like in my case, they picked the stupidest things to go after, and in this case, they're picking them. Like there is case law that they could go after Google and say you're too tightly integrated with Chrome and Android.
Right.
And they would win that case because there's legitimate case law from almost 20 years ago that says the same thing. Although they could do that, they could also go after Google and say, you have 78% of the ad market, because that's the actual company they are. They're not a search company.
Right.
They're an ads company.
Right.
You have 78 or 68% of the digital ad market. You need to be broken up on the ad side. But they don't go after the things that make sense. They're going after this really esoteric argument.
Well, go ahead, Soil.
Sorry, like that's where I think my brain was hurting earlier. It's like, yeah, that would make more sense. I'd be behind that, but it was hard for me to say, yeah, I'm on Google's side on this one.
Well, and again, I'm not on a side per se, but look at YouTube and how dominant.
I definitely am. Anytime the DOJ comes up in conversation, on whatever position they take, I'm on the opposite side.
But let's look at YouTube. YouTube has been the dominant video source, and I think there was talks about monopolizing, all that, and breaking them up, whatever. But then along comes this Chinese TikTok company that's revolutionizing how consumers are, how they're consuming content. And all of a sudden, you're like, is YouTube dead?
Right.
And it happens overnight.
Yeah.
So I think competition. I want to believe competition instills, or I don't know what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say.
That's the position of
Capitalism.
Well, it's also the position of the environment that the laws for
Right.
antitrust were created.
But before I go too far there, I do want to bring up, maybe there's similarities, and hopefully our editors can make some kind of this makes sense. SMU football.
Mm-hmm.
They got the death penalty for football. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Yeah.
They were caught paying players when in fact everybody was paying players, but they got the death penalty. And then NCAA was like, oh shit, we can never do that again because it decimated that program it's still decimated. These guys were national champion. The SMU football team, college, was national championship quality football. And I'm not talking Division 17 B, C, never heard of you before.
Right.
I'm talking about national stage, national football. When they got the death penalty, I think everybody was like, oh, we can't do that again because we just destroyed. And then the unintended consequences was we destroyed that college's football program.
The problem is the DOJ does not have that awareness.
But what I'm saying is, well, benefit of the doubt, maybe somebody else does. Maybe they're like, hey, we did this thing to Microsoft years ago, and again, I'm not familiar with Microsoft Note to have a full tie-in on that analogy, or even if there is a comparison. But maybe there's like, hey, we did this before. It had the consequences that we didn't foresee. Let's not do that again.
With SMU, the law changed, right? Or I don't know if it was because of SMU, but now there's that law where you can pay players, right?
That has nothing to do with SMU. That's just because players are like, wait a minute, you're making billions and billions and billions of dollars. F off
a program that relies on our free labor. Yeah.
Right. So now NIL, there's a simulator. You could bring that in, but everybody was paying their players, and yes and no, I would say to that, but
it probably contributed, but it wasn't the
it wasn't the nail. Right. It was kind of like hey guys, everybody's been doing this for years.
Right.
Let's just come out of the closet and do it.
Right. Well, that's the same situation that there exists within, like I was saying, the thing that Microsoft got nailed on was the type browser integration with the operating system. Every tech company except for Microsoft does this.
And what's funny, and like that was the lawsuit. Yeah. Yet I don't like Safari, so I use Chrome. I don't like Chrome, so I use Firefox, if that's still a thing. I don't like Firefox, so I'm going to get Internet Explorer. There's options out there.
Right.
It's the stupid people that don't look for them that don't have the options.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that those are the people that call their congressman like, you should sue Microsoft because I don't want to use Internet Explorer.
Well, but and this is the other thing. If you're a real geek that understands browser software really well, if you are on Android, and I can't speak to iOS.
First of all,
I know you're a
iPhone baby.
The similar thing is true with Safari, but I don't know that if it's true to the same extent that it is on the Android platform because I haven't done all that research. But I have done the research for Android. Every single browser that you download that's got a different brand name, like Firefox or Kiwi or Brave,
they throttle it.
It's just Chromium under the shell.
Right.
It's just a different brand on top of Chromium, which is the browser engine that exists for Chrome. Safari does the same thing.
So it's just a white labeled.
Yeah, it's white labeled browsers, particularly
all made by the same company in India.
But what about
Silicon Valley? Yeah,
the conversation of like there are still we're only talking about a handful of companies, but we're not necessarily just browsers. But when we're talking about tech and the internet, we're talking about Google, YouTube, which is Google. We're talking about Apple.
Talking about
Alphabet, right? Sorry. Right. We talk about this with social media, right? When does something become a monopoly when it comes to the internet? Because they're definitely not in bed together, but there's still only three companies.
There just needs to be a different word for it because it's not a monopoly, right?
Yeah.
It's a monopoly. Well, first of all, a monopoly implies a certain set of services. Look at what we've called monopoly prior to this. In almost every historical example of a monopoly, it became a monopoly because the government sanctioned it, because the government was regulating a scarce resource as a utility or a public good. Like monopolies in media arose because the FCC controls the airwaves. Monopolies in steel and oil occurred because we're talking about regulation and government contracts with scarce resources. And so it makes sense in that world because we're not talking about free market competition and letting the cream rise to the top in that case. You're talking about deals that were made with the government, and then the company that made the deals enshittifying, as Cory Doctorow says, or extracting rent out of the customer base in defiance of what the government intent was. And that's not what's happening in any of these internet deals.
Well, it goes back to true capitalism versus the bailout culture. Like, in a situation where you do have scarce resources, inevitably one of those companies is going to falter and fail. The problem is we live in a society where those people that would be unemployed have congressmen, congresswomen they can call, and then those people don't want that plant to fail.
But that's not even what's happening.
Then they bail out that company, so you never have like really good companies, and then all those resources are I'm just rambling, but I'm just saying.
But that's not even what's happening here. So if you zoom out, it's not people that are being unemployed that are making the complaints. That would be some level of, like, I understand what's happening here, but what it is this larger populist movement.
It's Democrats that have stocks in these tech companies.
No, it's not even that, because they'll play both sides. They'll short and long anything that makes money. Look at
I said Democrats. I meant everyone.
The Nancy Pelosi, the stock index, right? Like, it's just better performing hedge fund.
Yeah, she's a really good stock trader.
Yeah. No, it's what's happening is there's this populist movement, and it's dominated by the Democrats, but it's also there's some Republican co-signers to this populist movement where they just hate Silicon Valley. They hate innovation, and you're seeing it being taken out. And this is not just
who's they?
It's a populist overreaction.
Oh yeah,
that certain politicians, which you can if you look up the politicians, like for instance, that are co-signing on this anti-crypto bill that Warren just put in front of Congress.
When was that put out?
Yesterday.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I mean, but it was like it's mostly Democrats and a couple of Republicans.
Okay.
And it's not just aimed at crypto, although crypto has been one of the harshest recipients of it in the last year, and I myself have been on that receiving end of that personally. Yeah. But it's also a bucking against surveillance capitalism. Like the idea that Facebook and Google and a lot of large Silicon Valley companies of their ilk are not good custodians of our data.
It's so funny because the irony of and again, I'm sifting through it. The bill is going against the Facebooks and all these big Silicon Valley that for the past 3 years have been uber liberal, going after all this stuff. And now it's okay. He said, let's wrap.
Sorry, finish your thought.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, but he's just saying to me, it's just the hysterical of the how quickly their minds will change of how they'll weaponize. And I'm saying I mean all politicians. They'll weaponize a thing on a Monday, and by Thursday they'll de-weaponize, or by Wednesday they'll de-weaponize it, and Thursday they'll vilify it for being a weapon.
Right.
And it's like, it was you built the gun and shot it, and now you're mad at the gun.
Right. Yeah. The meme. How could you do such a thing? The Eric Andre meme. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'll have to pull it up.
Yeah. But it's, yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, these were all organizations that were firmly in the camp of Obama era activism, pro-Obama, pro-Democrat. And then, it only took 8 years later when they realized that this was a tool that could be used for both sides, not just one side, that the politicians were like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not so cool with this idea.
So I was, lately I've been on a World War II, post-World War II, 1960s, 1970s movies about World War II.
Yeah.
So, Midway. Uh-huh. The original one, and we were like, oh, it's just patriotism, and the Japanese are so bad, but it's all pro-America. And you're like, man, we lived in such a simple time back then it's crazy when a world could be completely at war, and that was simpler times.
Right. Yeah.
But then again, you're like, yeah, bad guys, good guys, got it.
Wasn't black and white, it was red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, Merca.
Merca.
All right.
Merca.
On that note.
What is I haven't seen that. What is he? Is he shoot somebody and he said, what did you do?
Yeah, it's
why would blank do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah. America.
That could be our thumbnail for the week, I guess.
I do have an idea for a movie.
What is it?
Basically it has nothing to do with this conversation. Probably a Hallmark movie where you get like hey, I just won the Medal of Honor and I'm, wartime hero. And maybe he's been in the field, so he's not really in with feel or pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then he randomly meets like a pop star, like a Taylor Swift type, and then they fall in love. And then the antics of, fish out of water military guy with the pop star. The pop star has to deal with the fact that it's the same movie that's been made over 1,000 times, but it's different.
All stories are the same. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
And then they fall in love at the end.
That's it sounds like it'll sell a bunch of seats.
I'm writing
at Hallmark.
Yeah.
I'm writing a screenplay for no specific reason, just for fun, but using GPT-4 just to see how it goes. And it's not great yet. I'm prompting it, but it's,
So Sohail, what I'm hearing is you are against the writer's strike.
No,
You're on the side of the studio.
Sohail's scabbing right now with ChatGPT.
Oh my God,
Scabbing.
okay.
Sohail the Scab.
On that note,
Sohail the Scab. That's his new Twitter handle. Sohail.
no, it is really good at helping outline and stuff. Like, I'm totally for GPT, but can still be on the side of getting paid
Right.
more.
Yeah, I wish we had more time. This episode of Roundtable with mostly just me was far less unhinged than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna.
Well, we can keep going for another 10, 15, whatever. It's whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
If you have further
Well,
thoughts.
we have your podcast.
Yeah,
right
but
now.
Donovan's going to be late.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or if he shows up at all.
I texted him yesterday and he thumbs upped it,
No,
which
okay.
doesn't mean shit.
Doesn't mean anything.
That's a increased likelihood that he'll be here.
Yeah, he's like,
Someone.
no, he'll just walk. Oh, you're filming. My bad.
Okay. We'll just jump straight into.
Well, I think
your
we could.
podcast,
If
if
you
that's
have
what
another topic on your mind you want to discuss.
Well, so the
we
other
can.
thing was the MGM hack. This has been going on for a week, and
I don't know what that is.
Well, it's about to explain it.
Thank you.
That's what we do here. You don't know what it is, you'll know in a second.
MGM. Those are letters.
Yeah, it's a company. It's a film company. You might have heard of them.
Metro Goldwyn Mayer.
And they also have a chain of resorts in Las Vegas.
The Pyramid.
Yeah,
Okay.
MGM.
With the lions.
So it's the lion in the pyramid that has been hacked.
Where's the wardrobe?
That's next.
Thank you, Sohail. Thank you. I heard that laugh from the other room.
Yeah.
Got
So
We need to do better sound proofing of this room.
So I knew about this because it came up on my TikTok feed that a bunch of MGM employees are whistleblowing on the fact, and people that are staying at the resort are whistleblowing on the fact that the elevators don't work. You got to take the stairs, and the dispensers that handle the money. Basically, they've been ransomware. The entire just exploited, rooted top to bottom at MGM. And they've kept it mostly under wraps from the mainstream media up until today when the Financial Times wrote about it and everybody else just piled on.
So the reason my face is like this is I had a buddy, I won't name drop, there was a certain hotel that was being developed in the mid to late 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And he was brought in as an outside consultant to basically, cybersecurity. And he went through the whole thing and he pointed out all these holes. And then he got to, I can't say the guy's name, but he got to the owner of the casino's laptop and he said, "Hey, do y'all want me to keep going or do you want me to stop?" And they said, "You're done." And they kicked him out of the building.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I missed a very important part of that story. The first thing they did when he got on site is brand new casino in the mid to late thousands was they showed him a room with no windows and a drain in the middle of the room. And they said, the mafia's gone, right?
Mm.
Yeah, they're gone. Mm-hmm. They made a joke about how they may be gone, but they're not gone.
Right.
So I'm having this face because that is unheard of for the last 50 years. Ransomware, people hacking the mob, because it's still the mob.
Right. Well, this is probably, most of these big botnets are usually, this is a whole other discussion. It's an industry, but it's also run by Eastern European mobs for the most part.
So tougher mobs. Come on, Italy.
Yeah, something like that.
Step up your game.
Now, what's odd is, and are interesting, perhaps, and a topic for another time, is the way in which these ransomware services are run. They're run at the scale of an enterprise platform, SaaS platform now.
Right.
So like you're actually, if there's no guarantee that it's, organized crime that's taking MGM ransom, but they're using a platform that's owned and operated by organized crime in Eastern Europe. Because it's a crazy setup. They even have their own support teams and like ticketing systems, and it's a whole. You're just renting the network when you take over. But anyway, what's going on here is, I was also this week contacted by Homeland Security.
Oh, I heard.
You heard about that? Yeah, that was fun. They're not obviously too busy dealing with MGM to go after little old me. They hacked a server of mine, a development server that had a bunch of data on it, and decided to contact everybody involved with that project and tell them I was a
That's
felon.
when priorities are kind of weird. It's like, oh, you got this Google thing, and then you got this MGM thing. Oh, Dr. Bitcoin.
Right.
America's most whatever.
Dangerous
Bitcoiner.
I don't know. But yeah, no, literally it's the whole. There's probably like I'm looking at 15 or 20 organizations that are covering it now.
Yeah.
It's out there in the public.
I just can't get over the fact that like
And also Caesars. Caesars was also taken over too.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So not just limited to one. I mean, like it's Domino's and Vegas are toppling right now.
Well, can you imagine actually winning a slot machine jackpot and then trying to cash it in today?
Oh yeah.
They're gonna be like, no. And you're like, I spent $100,000 the last 5 years to get this jackpot. They're like, we don't care.
Right.
It's a fake jackpot.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? What's the recourse?
Oh yeah. What is the recourse? But I mean, think about this from a hacker perspective, right? They really have struck the jackpot, right? Because they've been going after, run of the mill, like that. The DART system.
Yeah.
They've been ransomware twice now. I think they just got past the last one a couple of months ago, but about 7 years ago, they were ransomwared for an entire year while they decided to, instead of pay the ransom, just rebuild the system from scratch.
Did you say DART?
Yeah, DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit. I don't know if you take DART and you remember from like 2016 to 17, or maybe it's 15 to 16, none of the signs worked at any of the rail stations or the bus stations. It was because they were ransomwared. And so they had to do a whole bidding process to rebuild the system from scratch because they didn't want to pay the ransom, because they didn't have a mechanism for buying Bitcoin to pay the ransom with. So
That's a story. Dang. What
Yeah.
the hell?
I don't know if I'd want to pay the ransom.
but that's the thing is
Ego.
These, well, sure, right? But you take your emotions out of it. These ransomware companies are very good about, if you pay the ransom, we'll give it back to you, because the whole scam relies on trust.
And is there a security that they won't come after you again?
No, of course not.
Is there a union of
There's no security.
Is there an association of ransomware companies that, hey,
Yes,
we got
actually.
this company, so nobody go after them anymore?
Actually, yes. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's essential. I mean, you want to talk about a monopoly? It's like a duopoly in the world of ransomware, usually, because they're so big and so many companies have been penetrated that you buy companies off of a list, and then you as the individual, as the customer of the ransomware company, are responsible for extorting them on your own.
Why don't these people just get like a real job?
Well, think about it. If you've got MGM on the hook, and you can, I mean, how much money they have, you can ask for whatever you want. And they have, and so this is another interesting story from about a month or two ago along these same lines, is they had ransomwared a couple of hospitals that were like, and they shut down like the ERs, and then they got a bunch of bad press, and they go, you know what, my bad. We're not trying to kill anybody. We're just trying to make a little bit of money here. We're just honest criminals. We'll give it back to you. So they did. Is this what you predicted was going to happen? Cool. I guess we're going to wrap that up on this note.
Yeah. With honest criminals.
Yes, with honest criminals. Yeah, but that's exactly what happens. What you said. They do like respect the rules of the ransom, I suppose.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
We need to get into a new business, Ryan.
No, I like cameras.
I mean, given that I know I've got a new agent watching me, I'm going to say I'm never going to get into that business right here on camera on the internet.
Right.
But you guys, feel free.
This is listed under entertainment, so everything I say is sarcasm.
In Minecraft.
Yep, in a video game.
All right. Well, that's the roundtable for the week. We're gonna come back next week with hopefully some more people on the table.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.